In the first 2 seasons of The Dragon Prince, Soren was basically the fantasy equivalent of the high school jock bully archetype. He's muscular and confident, a deliberate contrast to our nerdy and decidedly not confident protagonist, Callum. But like that jock archetype, he is too dumb to inflict actual damage. He's just a moron. It's hard to hate him. He's not a bad person, and he's clearly not to blame for Viren's conniving. He obeys his father because it's his father, and because Viren's very eloquent, not because Soren has any philosophical connection to Viren's views and ideals. Because of this, he is willing to turn against his father in Season 3. It is a gradual process, and I like that. Too many redemption stories are just, look, this character you liked, they're redeemed. Aren't you happy? Look at what we did. There is no truth to that. These writers forget that the beauty of a redemption arc comes not in the being redeemed, but in the journey to redemption. As the idiom goes, it's the journey that matters, not the destination. We see Soren take issue with his father's lies and manipulation. Viren either takes Soren's loyalty for granted, or doesn't care about him enough to build and maintain Soren's loyalty toward him. Thus, Soren subverts his authority, but still, Soren does not completely turn his back on his father until he sees that his father has given in completely to dark magic. Now, looking at someone with evil glowing eyes and thinking, maybe this guy isn't exactly good, is not exactly the most impressive feat in the world. But what makes it work here is that we know how deeply Soren has wanted to impress his father in the past. We know how deep his loyalty to his family runs, so to see him turn against that loyalty to do what is right is genuinely impressive. It is a major accomplishment for him, and I love how they do not just end his redemption arc right there. He gets a speech about why he turned, and why it is important to fight against Viren. Now, if you subscribe to the theory that showing is innately better than telling, then the speech is something of a disappointment. What Soren does is more important than what he says. But I don't know if I quite believe that. His speech is not redundant. Because he left in such an extreme situation, it is important for him to clarify that Viren going over the top and just succumbing to all the dark forces in the world is not the only thing that is wrong with him. Rather, that occurrence merely allowed Soren to solidify feelings that had been building up in him since the start of the show. Also, considering how much of an oaf Soren can be, it's impressive to see him give this eloquent monologue. It is not unrealistically poetic, but it is still powerful. This is why Soren is going to die. His redemption arc is not entirely over, but he has repeatedly proven his redemption. The only thing he could do now to elevate that redemption would be to die protecting Ezran. I am not entirely sure the show is going to kill a major character like Soren, but I am confident that if it does kill such a major character, that character is going to be Soren. It would complete his growth into maturity and give his character closure. Now, I realize I am going to have to further justify this, as the heroic sacrifice is possibly the most overdone story trope in the universe. It can be a lazy way to give a character redemption without making that character actually earn redemption. But while I do not tend to recommend this trope, it would make sense for Soren. For one, it would allow him to become the complete inversion of Viren, his father. To see why, let's look at Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender, another teenager who turns against his father. Why does Ozai loathe Zuko leaving him, besides the obvious? And why was it so hard for Zuko to leave Ozai? It's about Zuko not just rejecting his father, but rejecting his father's entire ethos. Ozai prizes nothing more highly than authoritarian exercise of power. Your own feelings, and the feelings of others, matter less than being a decisive, even cruel, leader. In the comics, when Zuko is so desperate that he asks Ozai for advice, Ozai responds that whatever decision he makes is far less important than Zuko believing that he has the complete unilateral right to make that decision as the Fire Lord. That is who Ozai is. That is what he believes. Absolute power should be used for its own sake. Zuko defies that. He prioritizes empathy and compassion over brute force, and this, as much as anything, is what infuriates Ozai. So let's look at Viren. What does Viren prioritize above all else? Family. At least, supposedly. As does Claudia. You stick with your family even when what your family is doing is not right. If Soren sacrifices himself to protect another, that would be the complete repudiation of that ideology. It would be him valuing the protection of others over the protection of himself. Additionally, Soren sacrificing himself would allow him to demonstrate awareness of the outside world. Awareness is not something Soren has in spades. Unlike Ezrin, Rayla, and Callum, all of whom understand their place in history, Soren has been mostly ignorant. Claudia may lack self-awareness, as that is a skill she has never needed to develop, but she does have awareness of the world at large. Soren lacks this. In Season 3, we see him start to develop that skill, but he is still in the basic stages of that development. Soren joined Team Callum not because his view of the grandiose political landscape has changed, but rather because his view of his own father has changed. This is great. There is nothing necessarily wrong with this, but wouldn't it help build his character and help advance it from where it was at the start of the series if he said something like, "I'm not going to run. I could, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stay here and protect Ezrin, because that would be better for the world, even if it means my own death." Seasons 4 and 5 are likely going to be the darkest seasons of this show. We already have the grand triumphant ending of Act 1, that being the end of Season 3, when elves and humans team up to defeat a greater evil, that being Viren and the people he enchanted with dark magic. Unless we want the next 4 seasons to be nothing but an unending parade of triumphs, things are going to unravel, and that is likely going to happen in Season 4. The heroes will suffer a great defeat or two before finally rebounding and achieving ultimate victory in the final season. That seems to be where the show is going. A number of characters may die as the show gradually becomes darker. Obviously, it's vapid to believe character death is the only way to make a story darker, but it is, if done properly, a reliable way to do this. And if a major character is going to die, Soren by far makes the most sense. Callum and Rayla are the 2 focal points of the show. We can't lose them. And I don't see Ezrin dying. Number 1, that would be cruel for this show, which, despite its darkness, has a fundamentally warm heart. Number 2, it would not accomplish anything thematically that was not accomplished by King Harrow's death earlier in the series. That leaves Claudia and Soren. I highly doubt Claudia is going to die in Season 4 or Season 5. She is too important to the endgame to die early. The show would not go through the work of having Claudia drift toward evil, only to have her unceremoniously die near the middle of the series. That would be a waste. Regardless of whether or not Claudia is eventually redeemed, there is no reason to assume she is going to die. That would be a waste of a character. there's still so much the show can do with her. Soren is different. Now, I am not saying I personally would not like to see Soren travel with Team Callum for the rest of the series, but now that he is redeemed, I don't exactly know how much space there is for them to take the character. This isn't a Zuko situation where he has to prove himself to every member of the group. They already accept him. I'd love to see an episode where Soren and Rayla have to travel together, and she has to overcome her dislike of him. But if we don't get that episode, I would be fine. It does not have to occur for us to get the full picture of Soren. If he dies protecting Ezran, I would not believe we had been robbed of the fullness of his character arc. So if he is going to die, who is going to kill him? There are several tantalizing options. The first idea that came to my mind was Claudia killing him. Maybe not intentionally, maybe it's just an instant reaction of hers when he tries to do something she believes will harm him or her father. But he dies at her hands. The innocent interactions between them earlier in the series would be reframed as a lighter counterpoint to the tragic conclusion of that relationship. But ultimately, I decided against this idea. Not because it's not fascinating narratively, it absolutely is fascinating, and it would make seasons 4 and 5 as dark as they need to be for the overall 3-act structure of the show to work. And it's not like I can't imagine Claudia doing this, especially if it's at least somewhat unintentional, and especially if she continues down the path of darkness, which we have every reason to believe she will. But considering Claudia's similarities to Azula, and considering Aaron Ahas's comments about wanting to redeem Azula back when he was a writer on Avatar: The Last Airbender, I believe Claudia will be redeemed. And if she kills Soren, redeeming her would be basically impossible. So I doubt that is going to happen. If someone kills Soren, it is either going to be Erebos directly or Erebos using someone as a puppet. Now, this would not be as thematically interesting as Claudia killing Soren, but it is a lot more likely, and it would do a lot to make Erebos more of a substantial and a tangible threat to our protagonists. Sure, we the viewers are invested in Erebos, but Team Callum is not at this point. They don't even know who he is, and even when they find out, it will not create a personal relationship between them and Erebos. This is the same problem I have with the finale of Avatar: The Last Airbender, as much as I love that finale. Aang and Ozai have no personal investment in each other. There is no relationship between them. However, if Soren is killed by Erebos, that instantly creates that personal relationship. You have far more dramatic tension. I hate to say that I want Soren to die via heroic sacrifice, because I like him a lot, but it would be smart storytelling. And based on what the show has hitherto shown us, it is going to be progressing down that route. It's going to be brutal, but artistically speaking, I can't wait. It is going to be so interesting, and so tragic for our beloved Soren. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can, and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching The Dragon Prince. It is a brilliant show with nuanced characters that it is only deepening as it goes along. Season 4, if we get it, is going to be fantastic, and it will do even more to complicate what we already know about the characters and this world. So tune in soon for the next analysis on this channel. It will be coming soon-ish, depending on my schedule. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.